Welcome back to our series, Priority of Prayer. Have you ever lost your keys? Maybe even lost your reading glasses or sunglasses? Where do you often find them? Many a times I have found the keys I was looking for in my hand. I have many times found the sunglasses that I was looking for on the top of my head. Were the glasses really lost? Were the keys actually lost? We thought they were, but in actuality, they weren't. So I had to ask another question. Are we able to have concern and still have peace? Are we still able to have some worry and joy at the same time? I would say absolutely yes. What does this have to do with prayer? Well, I want to read to you something that I love found in Mark chapter 9, and we're going to start with verses 17. A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." "O unbelieving generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought the boy to him. And when the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. "It has often tried to throw him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything is possible to him who believes." Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe, but help me in my unbelief." When Jesus saw that a crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the spirit. "You deaf and dumb spirit," he said, "I command you to come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit shrieked, convulsed, and violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand, lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we drive him out?" He replied, "This kind can only come out by prayer." A couple of things. First and foremost, I want to focus on what the Father said in verses 24 because it applies to our lives right now. "I believe," he said, "but help me in my unbelief." How many of us are afraid to pray that prayer? This man is speaking to Jesus. He's asking Jesus. This is a prayer to Jesus, face to face. How many of us are afraid to say that to Jesus ourselves? "I believe, but help me in my unbelief." You see, I believe that we can believe that Jesus is who he says he is and still have some unbelief. Just like we lost our keys, we lost our sunglasses, but were they really lost? Can we have joy and grief at the same time? Can we have faith and still have some unbelief at the same time? Yes, but here's the thing, and here's the thing I love that the Father did for his Son in front of Jesus. And I believe it's a prayer that all of us need to begin to pray right now. We know that Jesus is capable to do the things that he is able to do. But we know that there's been times where we have been praying and praying and praying for God to help us overcome a situation, and we have not seen that prayer be answered. And this world can always try to get its best of us. And sometimes it does get the best of us. And when that happens, it can cause unbelief. But I want us to begin to be able to pray this powerful prayer. "I believe, but God help me in my unbelief." If you don't get involved in this situation, if you don't get involved of my marriage falling apart, if you don't get involved of my neighborhood falling apart, if you don't get involved of seeing my son or my grandkid get over this addiction, then I know that there's absolutely no hope. I need you, but Father, I've been asking this, and I know that some unbelief has crept into my heart. So I'm asking, this is a powerful prayer. Make yourself known in this situation. I believe you are who you say you are, but help me overcome my unbelief. So what does Jesus do? He heals the boy. God, Jesus, answered the Father's request. I believe that many of us are afraid to ask that prayer. I don't want us to be afraid to acknowledge that we have some unbelief. Can you imagine if Jesus would approach the man and said, "You can't fully believe that I'm not going to heal your son"? No, he understood that the man, the father, had faith. And in that, the father asked that Jesus would help him overcome his unbelief by healing his son. I want that to be a priority in our prayer this week. I believe that Jesus is who he says he is, but I still have some unbelief. Jesus, help me overcome my unbelief. And I just want to focus on a little bit this last part when Jesus said, this type of thing in this world can only be overcome through prayer. That is why we continue to do this series, The Priority of Prayer. Some of you are facing some extreme difficulties in your life, and I want you and I to know that the thing that can overcome what you're experiencing oftentimes can only come through prayer. Will you make prayer a priority this week? Will you be willing to open your heart and admit that even in your belief, there's some unbelief, which should lead us to this prayer that the Father prayed. Help us, Jesus, overcome our unbelief. And Jesus gave this man's son back to him, who had been suffering with this demon since he was a child. I pray, my prayer is that you would come to a faith and belief that Jesus is the one who can help you overcome your unbelief. Will you make that your prayer this week?